Montreal, December 21st, 1941. Upon this blackest of winter nights, the wind ululates with eldritch purpose, and I know with a dreadful certitude that resonates through my ancient bones that it keens my name. These fetid draughts that pierce the decrepit walls of my once proud ancestral mansion carry whispers, such whispers, that I have not heard in 20 years, yet recall with a crystalline clarity that haunts my every waking moment. My hands, gnarled now by the ravages of time like twisted roots of some ancient oak, tremble as I set pen to paper, knowing with grim certainty that these words shall constitute my final testament to the horrors that lurk beyond the veil of our mundane existence. The servants, those last tenuous threads to normalcy, fled this accursed place 3 days hence. They spoke of an unbearable cold, though the furnace yet burns with futile defiance. They were wise to flee, for the gelid malevolence that now seeps through these walls bears that same cosmic hostility I encountered in the frozen wastes of Quebec 4 decades past. A cold that speaks of spaces between the stars and geometries unknown to terrestrial mathematics. I commit these words to paper now, before whatever unspeakable fate awaits me, that some record might survive of both my first encounter and my last. The original journal, discovered amidst the ruins of my abandoned camp so many years past, tells but half the tale. This document shall complete the terrible narrative, though I pray it never finds its way to innocent eyes, unprepared for such sanity-shattering revelations. The shadows in the corners of my study writhe with impossible length, and within their depths I perceive movement that no earthly fire's guttering could explain. The voices borne upon the wind grow ever clearer, speaking of matters that no mortal mind was meant to comprehend, of flights beyond the aurora borealis, of cyclopean cities carved from polar ice by entities that walked these frozen wastes when our world was young. It comes. The window glass has transmuted to a blackness deeper than the void between stars. I see its eyes, those eternal patient orbs that have haunted my dreams these 40 years. At last, I understand the true meaning of infinity. I perceive now, with the clarity of one who stands at the threshold of doom, that Ithaqua never truly granted me reprieve. That fateful day in 1901 marked not an escape, but rather a claiming, as a hunter of eldritch spheres might blaze a tree, knowing with immortal patience that he shall return to claim his prize. For 40 years I have existed with the terrible knowledge of what lurks above the shimmering aurora, hearing its siren call in every winter gale. The windwalker, possessed of patience that spans eons, has waited until time itself has rendered me too frail to flee its final embrace. The temperature plummets with preternatural swiftness. Frost forms upon the interior of windows in patterns that mock our paltry understanding of crystalline geometry. The wind speaks with voices I recognize. Those damned souls that swirled in its terrible train that accursed day. Soon I fear with mounting horror my voice shall join their eternal chorus. January 15th, 1901, Quebec Wilderness. The folly of youth bears a terrible price. I remember that night with crystalline clarity. How could I not, when its horror has shaped every moment since? I had taken grandfather's prized Martini Henry rifle, determined to prove my worth through some misguided display of manhood. The moon hung full and bright when I left our family estate, casting long shadows across the fresh snow. 2 hours into the wilderness, the first signs manifested. The wind changed, not gradually, as is nature's way, but with sudden calculated malice. The moonlight, my faithful companion, began to dim, though no clouds were visible. The darkness that followed was absolute, bearing qualities that defied traditional absence of light. It seemed to possess weight, substance, and worst of all, purpose. Finding myself in such profound darkness, I sought refuge in a shallow cave, more an impression in the rock face than true shelter. The temperature plummeted with unnatural swiftness. The wind, dear God, the wind. It did not howl or moan as winter storms should. Instead, it whispered in tongues that no human throat could produce, speaking of voids between stars and geometries that mock our understanding of space. I had known these woods since childhood, had weathered countless storms within their embrace. But this darkness, this cold, it was wrong. The familiar sounds of the forest had ceased entirely, replaced by a silence so complete it seemed to devour even the sound of my own heartbeat. The blizzard that arose possessed a dreadful intelligence, its patterns too precise, too purposeful to be natural. As I huddled in that meager shelter, watching my breath crystallize in patterns that no frost should form, I realized with mounting horror that I had not stumbled into this situation by chance. Something had shepherded me here, orchestrating my isolation with the patience of an entity to whom time holds no meaning. The darkness grew deeper still, and in that impossible blackness I began to see things that no darkness should contain. In that profound darkness, my vision contracted to a single point, a disturbance in space that defied comprehension. What emerged from the whirling snow defied sanity. The entity's form shifted between aspects of horror, each more impossible than the last. First, it appeared as a mass of translucent flesh, housing countless watching eyes, each one moving independently, yet all fixed upon me with predatory intent. Its maw spiraled open like a flower of crystalline fangs, rotating in dimensions that shouldn't exist. Then it transformed, becoming a creature of pure geometrical nightmare, its head adorned with crystalline growths that seemed to contain frozen universes within them. 2 burning red eyes pierced the darkness, surrounded by structures of impossible ice that folded back into themselves. The most terrifying aspect came last. A thing of writhing tendrils that radiated from a central mass, each tendril terminating in secondary maws that gnashed with mindless hunger. The being's flesh had become like ancient parchment, covered in symbols that crawled and shifted before my eyes, each one burning with eldritch meaning. These forms blurred and merged, suggesting that what I witnessed was merely my mind's desperate attempt to rationalize something that existed beyond the boundaries of Euclidean space. The wind howled with voices that spoke of ancient knowledge, each word freezing in the air before shattering into patterns that hurt the eye to observe. Through it all, those eyes remained constant. Whether multiplied across its shifting surface or concentrated into burning points of absolute zero, they held the weight of eons and the promise of transformation through eternal ice. Paralysis gripped me with a totality that transcended mere physical constraint. I existed as consciousness alone, aware yet utterly immobile, floating in a void of absolute zero. My body had ceased to be my own, perhaps had ceased to exist entirely, leaving only my awareness to witness the horror before me. The entity's manifold forms coalesced, bringing its nightmare maw mere inches from what I perceived to be my face. Then it spoke my name, not in sound, but in frequencies of cold that resonated through whatever remained of my being. The name emerged as crystals of frozen time, each syllable shattering the laws of nature. James Edward Marlowe, it pronounced, each word forming patterns of frost in the air that spelled doom in geometries unknown to human mathematics. You are marked not for death, but for witness. The voice carried the weight of glacial eons, of winters that existed before Earth knew warmth. Watch as each winter claims your blood. Mother, father, sisters, brothers, all shall know the embrace of the eternal storm. Only you shall remain preserved in consciousness until such time as the stars align and true transformation begins. In that moment, I understood with horrible clarity that death would have been a mercy. Ithaqua had cursed me not with ending, but with eternal continuation, an awareness that would persist long after my family line had been claimed by the winter winds, long after the very concept of humanity had been frozen into new forms better suited for the spaces between stars.